What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel. A little bit different type video. If you've been a long time subscriber here, you know we usually talk about the Philadelphia Eagles when something prudent is afoot, usually big time trades and stuff like that. And I feel like because Philadelphia has been, you can't go anywhere. You can't type in any player that's rumored to be traded without, like on Twitter, without Eagles. Like Stephon Diggs right now. Supposedly there's a lot of drama going on in Minnesota. My God, Kirk Cousins is destroying that team. But, people are like, oh, is Diggs going to the... Like, Eagles fan base is incredibly rabid when it comes to potential trades. Like Emmanuel Sanders is like a wide receiver that's potentially on the trade block. We're not getting a wide receiver, fellas. We are not getting a wide receiver. And, well, it does appear that the Philadelphia Eagles right now are planning on trying to outscore their opponents in every game this season until they fix up that defense. And we're getting healthy. Alshon Jeffrey's back. Looks like Deshaun Jackson is very, very close. It might even be this week. I don't know yet. Dallas Goedert's back. Offensive line's been healthy. I it's not really sustainable if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, we have shown, look at the Redskins game, second half against the Redskins, that we're going to be able to air it out on a lot of teams when we're full strength. Look at the Packers game, where you can run the ball on anyone. And I think that we're starting to finally find a game plan that is conducive to this team being very, very good. The worst thing you want to say about Carson Wentz is that he looks better in a simplified game plan. But the entire Eagles offense looks better in a simplified game plan. That's why the team looks so good with Nick Foles. Every time Carson Wentz went down, it was like, oh, Nick Foles magically turned this offense around. It's because they didn't ask Nick Foles to do half the nonsense that they're trying to get Carson Wentz to do. When you keep the playbook simple, when you run the exact same game plan that they did against the Green Bay Packers, you're going to have a lot more success with the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to have a lot better starts and not just this whole, oh, we don't score points in the first quarter anymore. So if they have that idea that we have to outscore our opponents every single week to get victory, I mean, we have the firepower to do it. I think they said everyone knows the drops. If you're an Eagle fan, it's even more so. Someone on Pro Football Focus said that they calculated like the yards and touchdowns and stuff on drops for like every quarterback. So it wasn't just, trying to fish for Philadelphia Eagle bias and stats like that. They had like, modified stats. I think Deshaun Watson was up, for example. Anyways, Carson Wentz, They did that calculation. He was like far and away, like I think he had most touchdowns in the league, 11 touchdowns, like up there in yardage and stuff like that. So Carson Wentz is playing incredible through a quarter of the season. He's Pro Football Focus #1 QB. And ultimately, my point here is that with how our defense is playing right now, everything looks like the Philadelphia Eagles has to do is win in shootouts because our defense is not going to be able to contain the top offenses in the NFC for us to find a way to get to the Super Bowl. So looking at said defense. We're not going to go too in-depth as to what I think a lot of the reasons are. I think that the defensive line has been underperforming. I think the linebackers have been meh. Safeties have been strong. I think Rodney McLeod, a guy that I usually talk about as a potential cut, salary cap savings type guy, he's been very, very good. Malcolm Jenkins, it is what it is. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. But it comes back to the secondary. And, man, I was wrong. Coming into the season, I thought that because of the competition in the secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles, the cream was going to rise to the top. We know Jalen Mills. We are on this channel, firm belief that Jalen Mills would be a pretty good safety. He's a solid red zone corner, but other than that, he's just not athletic enough. And when he comes back off IR, I think that's in a couple weeks, he's not going to be the savior of the secondary like some Eagles beat reporters have been trying to, hint at. You look at Ronald Darby, incredibly inconsistent, has been terrible to start this season. He's the big name in our secondary. Sidney Jones looking like a bust. He was only a second-round pick, and usually bust only goes for first-rounders, but he was considered a first-round pick. He was considered right up there with Marshawn Lattimore for the best corner in that draft class. And Sidney Jones, he just gets hurt way too much. And I feel like that's been the biggest factor. I don't think it's so much a talent thing as it is just his injuries and really hindering his development. And then after that, you got Rasul Douglas. He's been solid, probably our best corner. Up and down, he's incredibly limited as an athlete. He can get beat deep pretty bad. You saw Scary Terry McLaurin do it against the in the Redskins game. But overall, Rasul Douglas, I think he's a starting caliber corner. He's a budget corner, which is, I've seen Brett Coleman do videos on like why did the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl and all that stuff and how the roster building goes in. And Philly has, saved money at linebacker and corner. They don't prioritize paying those guys big money. So Rasul Douglas definitely fits that mold to a T. Vontae Maddox, even though he got kind of burnt against the Packers and then destroyed by Sendejo, who I still don't know how he's on this team. Maddox is good in the slot. I think he's a versatile DB. He can play safety. He can matchup-based play on the outside. So I think Maddox is really, really solid. And we're going to be getting Crayvon LeBlanc back, who's a nickel corner. Played very, very well in the playoffs. But still, we have to wait and see. Can he be consistently that good and stay at that level? I'm hoping. But generally speaking, our corners are terrible. And when you look right now at the two biggest names, arguably, that are looking for trades, they could be at the cornerback position. First up, the biggest one is Jalen Ramsey. And reports have said the Philadelphia Eagles offered a first and a second, and that pick was declined. And there's been hypotheticals about like a first, a second, and Sidney Jones, which never would happen. Why would they want Sidney Jones? Unless they're like, they had Sidney Jones as a first-round pick and think, change the scenery would do him well. I highly doubt that. First and a second, and Dallas Goedert was another one. I'm not doing that if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas Goedert has a very, very high ceiling. Someone hinted at just straight up Zach Ertz for Jalen Ramsey. And, well, I actually think there's some merit to that in terms of just looking at the roster and building your roster. Because if you move Zach Ertz, you get Jalen Ramsey, a premier corner, and then you can promote Dallas Goedert to a starting tight end, which, I mean, in reality, in terms of talent, he probably should be. He's outstanding, a very high ceiling. I think Dallas Goedert's ceiling is as high as to where Zach Ertz is right now. But it's real life. It's not just Madden. There's personalities, and I think moving on from someone like Zach Ertz, regardless of if that's just a straight-up deal to get Jalen Ramsey, because the Jacksonville Jaguars really do need a tight end, it's gonna kill the locker room morale. It's gonna kill the chemistry, probably derail the season. You just can't do something like that. Like, it's very similar to like a year ago when Brandon Graham was reportedly on the trade block. Like, as much as it kind of might make sense from a salary cap standpoint, from allocating your resources to have more widespread depth, PG's a leader, and you can't move on from a guy like that. But ultimately, for Jalen Ramsey, there is a lot of Nnamdi Asomugha vibes because he doesn't want to play zone defense in Jacksonville, and the perception is Philly runs a lot of zone, which is what we do in Jim Schwartz, his scheme. But Philly would be able to. That's not a big point for me. I'm not hung up on that because you just saw even go back to against Atlanta. Rasul Douglas pretty much played man coverage the entire game on Julio Jones and did a pretty damn good job until, unfortunately, the last play where we kind of went all in on a blitz. So we're matchup based, and I feel like when Philly got Nnamdi Asomugha, we were like, okay, you played this in Oakland, but we want you to run something entirely different here in Philadelphia. You're not going to have that same mistake with Jalen Ramsey because you make this move for Jalen Ramsey, whatever it's going to cost. That's Jim Schwartz's job's probably on the line. Jim Schwartz is now not only trying to run this defense and have them be one of the best in the league, it's to make sure that Jalen Ramsey, this player that we just gave up incredible capital to get, works and plays well, and you maximize his strength. So I feel like the pressure would be on for Jim Schwartz, and if he can't do it, he'd be fired, and they'll bring in someone that can. So, when you look at Jalen Ramsey from a salary cap standpoint, he's got to get paid. He's in a contract year, which makes it a little bit more risky because you can make this trade, and things could somehow, for whatever reason, go south. But looking at Philadelphia's salary cap, we're going to have, even with some cuts, probably around $40 million of cap next year. You definitely can work Jalen Ramsey's contract into that. Things will be tight. But we have Howie Roseman. We trust the GM. But the question comes down to, what is it going to cost Jalen Ramsey? We've had a first and a second-round pick already denied. I mean, that could be the waiting game because, Jalen Ramsey's going to walk and you're going to get, a third-round comp pick probably for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Worst-case scenario. But get some value. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just, we're going to be difficult with Le'Veon Bell. Let him sit out and we're going to get a third-round pick. They probably could have got a second. Get more, or second and a third. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, I feel like if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, you don't really have a whole lot of leverage. You don't have to move them. And I feel like dealing with the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, it's like dealing with like a fantasy football trade. Like you think all your players are way too good, and you're going to overvalue. I think a first and a second. If Khalil Mack went for 2 firsts, essentially, there's some other stuff in the trade, but 2 firsts, I feel like Jalen Ramsey's probably a first, second, third, somewhere in that territory. He's not worth 2 first-round picks. He's way more of a headache, a head case, versus someone like Khalil Mack, who's not only seems like a good leader for the most part, but he's at a more value position as an edge rusher. So ultimately, I do think that, Jalen Ramsey would be an awesome fit for the Philadelphia Eagles, would definitely turn around our franchise. I think he's, in terms of just talent and versatility, the best in the NFL, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see. But another big name that's kind of not getting talked about a lot for the Philadelphia Eagles is Chris Harris Jr. Strap. Another strap. Even though Crayvon LeBlanc's also strap, I think Chris Harris had it first because it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a fire sale there for the Denver Broncos. Emmanuel Sanders and Chris Harris are the 2 big names. I think Chris Harris, from a scheme standpoint, is a terrific fit. He is the mold, the prototypical Jim Schwartz corner. You look at any corners that was drafted when Jim Schwartz was our DC at Tennessee and all that stuff. It's always that like sub 6 foot tall, fast, aggressive type guy versus the big, long, lanky guy, more like a Jalen Ramsey build. So from that standpoint, I think Chris Harris would walk in this defense and just like nothing, like no one's business, fit right in. He's obviously going to be a lot cheaper than Jalen Ramsey because obviously he's a little bit older and near the end of his career. So I think that that's a little bit more realistic at this point. What would it cost? second round pick, third round pick, just something like that to get Chris Harris on your team. So I think if I'm a Philadelphia Eagle fan, that's the guy I'm more so thinking that realistically could happen. Well, everyone wants us to land that big fish in Jalen Ramsey, and I think that's still definitely on the table. Howie Roseman is the most aggressive general manager in the National Football League. If there is a deal to be made for Jalen Ramsey, I think he's going to prioritize that over said a Chris Harris, who's more of a Band-Aid, more of a cover-up. But don't scoff at Chris Harris. Don't be like, oh, it's Jalen Ramsey or bust. A guy like Chris Harris is 10 times better than any corner we have on our roster. He can play on the outside, he can play on the inside, and he is a Band-Aid is exactly what we need in the secondary. You know, it would be nice to have a long-term corner, but a Band-Aid right now is better than having, Sidney Jones and Ronald Dyer get burnt for like 100-some plus yards every single game. So let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of Eagle fans want a corner, and those are the two big names right now linked with the Eagles. Who would you want? Jalen Ramsey at obviously a lot more expensive price, or get someone like Chris Harris for the short term that can help us win this season, as this is definitely a Super Bowl caliber roster. That does it for me here today, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with an episode of the Raiders franchise. Pink Slip starts next week. And that does it for me here today, guys. Thank you for watching. Smash that like button if you enjoy it. Subscribe if it's your first time stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.